The Master of Masquerade, unveiling the many faces of Stanley Clifford Wayman. Imagine slipping into the grandiose halls of power, dining with elites, and even orchestrating a presidential rendezvous, all without being yourself. This isn't fantasy. It was the reality for Stanley Clifford Wayman, the quintessential chameleon who turned life into an endless masquerade. Greetings, time travelers and trivia treasure hunters. You've tuned into Freaky Facts, History's Oddities. Today's episode unravels the enigma of Stanley Clifford Wayman, a man whose penchant for pretense left an indelible mark on the tapestry of time. Let's embark on this journey of JPs and jests, where the truth is stranger than fiction. The prodigy of pretense, origins of an imposter. Before the masquerades began, there was Stanley Jacob Weinberg, a son of Brooklyn, born in the closing days of the Victorian era. In 1890, amid the clatter of horse-drawn carriages and the burgeoning symphony of the industrial age, Weinberg entered a world on the cusp of modernity. His childhood unfolded in the working-class embrace of New York's famed borough, where the smokestacks loomed as monuments to the American dream, a dream that seemed just out of reach for the Weinberg family. Young Stanley's home life was simple, frugal, and tinged with the unspoken frustrations of potential stifled by poverty. The aspiration to become a doctor was kindled early in his heart, perhaps as a beacon of hope to elevate his family's station. However, the harsh reality of their financial limitations meant that his noble ambition would remain just that, an ambition. Instead, he was steered toward the practicality of clerical work, where the young Weinberg's imaginative mind found little solace. The dream deferred, the aspirations of young Weinberg. As the curtain falls on his childhood in Brooklyn, we turn to Stanley Jacob Weinberg, the young adult at a crossroads. The dream of medicine, a beacon of altruism and a ticket to a different life, had been extinguished not gently, but with the harsh reality of economic hardship. The son of a working-class family, Stanley's future seemed destined for the unremarkable routine of clerical work, an existence in stark contrast to the vibrant, transformative world he envisioned for himself. Yet within the monotonous shuffle of papers and the ticking of the office clock, Stanley's imagination brewed a potent concoction of ambition and fantasy. It was here, amidst the drudgery, that the seeds of his future self were sown. Unable to don the white coat of a physician, he instead began to drape himself in the myriad costumes of his design, each a tapestry of the life he could have led. The fabricated officials, the many masks of Weinberg. Amidst the cacophony of a burgeoning New York, Stanley Jacob Weinberg found his orchestra pit within the shadows of unassuming office walls. It was here that he commenced his grandiose performance, not as a file clerk, but as an architect of identities, each more audacious than the last. As an investigator for the mayor, he whispered into the ears of the hopeful and the hapless, spinning tales of inside knowledge and city secrets. With a tip of the hat and a confidential wink, he became a figure people believed held the keys to the city's beating heart. His ruse as a pilot, however, soared to new heights of daring. Weinberg, who had never flown, was suddenly a war hero, his chest bedecked with imaginary medals and his stories alive with aerial escapades over foreign lands. These personas were not merely false fronts, they were intricate characters in a play of Weinberg's scripting. He wove backstories and motivations, each detail a thread in the tapestry of his grand deception. His roles were not just assumed, but performed with a conviction that made them real to his unwitting audience. He didn't just wear a costume, he inhabited a soul, a backstory, a life entirely not his own. This was not a mere impersonation, it was possession, a total absorption into the skin of another. In the eyes of those he fooled, Weinberg was a man of importance, a man of intrigue. Each role he stepped into was a calculated risk, a performance balancing on the tightrope of believability, played to an audience that, perhaps out of desire or the distraction of their own busy lives, accepted the extraordinary at face value. So the audacious admiral, commanding the seas of deceit. In the grand theater of his life, Stanley Clifford Wayman's performance aboard the USS Wyoming was a masterclass in audacity. As Ethan Allen Weinberg, he donned the mantle of a consul general, a role concocted from the depths of his imagination, yet delivered with the precision of a seasoned actor. With the poise of a diplomat and the air of naval authority, Weyman convinced the Navy to grant him a grand tour of the USS Wyoming, an imposing battleship that stood as a testament to American military might. Clad in a dazzling uniform, a tapestry of faux honor stitched with golden threads of deceit, Weyman was the picture of a distinguished serviceman. He navigated the decks with an air of entitlement. His every order followed, his presence commanding a 21-gun salute that thundered across New York Harbor. The sailors and officers, respecting the regalia and the supposed consul's lofty office, were none the wiser as Weyman performed one hell of a tour of inspection, his every step through the corridors of the ship, a silent testament to his deceptive genius. But the grandeur didn't end at the ship's edge. Weyman, ever the extravagant impostor, planned a lavish feast in honor of the officers at the Astor Hotel, an event befitting the diplomatic facade he had so carefully constructed. It was to be a night of opulence, billed to the unsuspecting Romanian consulate, a final flourish to a day of elaborate deceit. The presidential ploy, the summit of subterfuge. Stanley Clifford Weyman's tale of deceit reached its crescendo in the summer of 1921. This chapter unravels the most daring and delicate of his masquerades, where he assumed the identity of State Department Naval Liaison Officer Rodney Sterling Wyman. With this invented title, Weyman orchestrated a feat that would etch his name into the annals of con artistry. He facilitated a meeting between Princess Fatima of Afghanistan and none other than the President of the United States, Warren G. Harding. The subterfuge was intricate and the stakes colossal. Weyman, with no credentials but his wits and a forged sense of entitlement, navigated the echelons of power to arrange this historic encounter. He exploited the period's communication gaps and the government's desire to avoid international faux pas, presenting himself as the solution to a diplomatic conundrum. In an astonishing display of bravado, Weyman even accompanied the foreign dignitaries onto the White House grounds for photographs, basking briefly in the glory of his monumental deceit. However, the grand illusion was ephemeral. The State Department, blindsided but quick to respond, pierced through Weyman's elaborate ruse. The aftermath saw Weyman arrested once more, but not before he had savored the intoxicating high of having duped the guardians of the highest office in the land. A life of many lives, the final curtain call. As the spotlight of notoriety intensified, Stanley Clifford Weyman, the man of many faces, found his stage shrinking. The thrill of the chase and the applause for his performances began to wane as the 1930s approached. Weyman's name, once whispered in awe or curiosity, became a watchword for duplicity among law enforcement and journalists. His once enigmatic features were now too recognizable, his reputation too notorious. The game of identity became perilous and the roles harder to assume. Weyman found himself grappling with the consequences of his past, no longer the dashing young impostor who could slip into the guise of foreign dignitaries or naval officers. The acts that had brought him ephemeral fame and adrenaline-fueled satisfaction led to a dwindling of opportunities as his face and name became too well known. Yet, even as the curtains began to close on his grand stage, Weyman's legacy was solidifying. His life was a patchwork of stories, each more incredible than the last. One man's life is a boring thing. "I lived many lives. I'm never bored," he once said, encapsulating the essence of his philosophy. The curious case of Stanley Clifford Weyman is a testament to the human desire for transformation and the allure of the forbidden. His legacy leaves us questioning the fabric of identity and the allure of the life unled. Has the siren call of another life ever whispered to you? Do you find Weyman's wiles wicked or whimsical? Comment below with your thoughts and suggest which historical figure's hidden hijinks you'd like us to uncover next. Hit like, subscribe, and bell icon to join us on our next escapade into the annals of the odd and the extraordinary. Until our paths cross again in the corridors of the curious, keep peering behind the masks of history.